most of these chains are actually zombie chains. I mean, it's created, there's a chain, there's a DEX, but there's not much activity, there's no trading volume, there's no transactions, very little TVL. It's very easy to spin off a new chain. Can you sustain user interest? Can you sustain developer interest? Can you get people to use it? That's not an easy thing. My name is Bobby. I'm the co-founder and COO at CoinGecko. I've been running this for 10 years. CoinGecko is a crypto data aggregator. We basically track and aggregate price, market cap, and crypto information for people to kind of know what's going on in the crypto market.
And what actually inspired you to enter the blockchain space? You mentioned 10 years, that's a long time in the industry. And how did you get started with CoinGecko?
Yeah, 10 years ago, I read the Bitcoin white paper, and I thought that it could be a possibility of a new monetary system being created, or the possibilities, things like decentralized finance, DAOs, and everything was kind of briefly described in various white papers. I thought that this could be an interesting path forward if what I would have described in all these white papers come true. Wanted to take a bet and kind of see what this industry could offer, because I was young, I just graduated, and it's no harm trying out. And I thought that this is an interesting industry that I strongly believe in. I see a lot of potential and opportunities. So yeah, basically
took the dive.
Yeah, went into the crypto industry and then started trading, buying some coins, and wanted to find opportunities to build a company in the crypto space. I think 10 years ago, there weren't that many interesting ideas because back then, Ethereum and any smart contract platforms were not around. So there was only Bitcoin, and opportunities were sort of like building either a fiat crypto exchange or being a Bitcoin miner. But there were some altcoins, and we thought that building a crypto data website could be an interesting opportunity. And we started building it, and mainly with the vision that even from 10 years ago, that anything that can be tokenized will be tokenized. And if we go with that vision, like we will start seeing a situation with billions of tokens representing anything and everything in the world. And I think today we are kind of halfway there, or maybe one quarter there, because we have a few million tokens out there already in the market.
Absolutely. Was then the founding conversation, if there was one, was it about being a shovel in a gold rush kind of thing? Did you guys have that discussion?
Yeah, I guess you can say that. Like, I mean, because like everybody's kind of trying to, either probably want to launch everybody wants to launch a crypto exchange. Even back then, 10 years ago, mostly fiat crypto exchange. These days, it's mostly crypto exchange. But we felt that we were not really the right team or the right skill set, have the right skill set to launch an exchange, because it comes to a lot of compliance requirements. So we thought like maybe there's something else that we could do to kind of serve this industry, and being a data aggregator is one way that we could do that.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, did you have a discussion about the regulatory landscape when deciding, how CoinGecko would be configured, let's say, and was the regulatory landscape or how young it was a factor in deciding that you wanted to be a data aggregator? Yeah,
definitely, because I think what surprised me up to today is that 10 years from the founding of CoinGecko, I thought by now we would have figured out all the regulatory stuff, but we still have a lot of regulatory uncertainty on what is allowed and what is not allowed in crypto. I mean, we're still debating whether a coin is a security or not. There's just no clear direction on what is a security and what is not a security. It's very opaque and vague right now. So we were kind of looking for regulatory clarity. So we decided to kind of go down the part that is safer. But I thought by now we would have everything clarified, but it's still pretty uncertain. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't want to be involved in trading. We want to run an exchange. We didn't run a wallet service because that comes with its own. You're holding customers' funds, for example. So being a data aggregator is a kind of very conservative approach, if you may.
That makes sense. I've got a very, very brief question because we touched on regulation there, and we're going to dive right into some Solana-related questions in a second. You live in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Singapore is right next door. A lot of people in the industry talk about the Monetary Authority of Singapore as one of these institutions that does bring regulatory clarity. As their neighbor, how do you see that?
I think a lot of regulatory authority have decided to regulate the crypto exchanges, and rightly so, because that's kind of like the gateway to that touches the fiat world. So it's fiat crypto exchanges, and I think if you look at countries, in many countries in the world, they started giving out licenses to crypto exchanges. So Singapore have given out licenses to crypto exchanges. The same can be said for Malaysia, where I'm from. Japan and many other countries have given out licenses, and that's for a good thing because it provides clarity on what exchanges can or cannot do, what they should or should not track, and all those other things. So I think it's a step in the right direction. All these regulations.
Perfect. I want to ask you, what brings you here to Solana Crossroads?
I think Solana has seen a lot of growth and adoption in the last 1 or 2 years. I think the meta for this crypto cycle is Solana. And I really want to come to Solana Crossroads to kind of check out the Solana community deeper and be more involved. But also more importantly, Solana Crossroads happening in Turkey. And there's been so much talk about how Turkey has really embraced cryptocurrency. And I mean, being here on the ground, I've really seen I'm welcome with BTC took advertisements at the airport. So crypto exchanges are advertising very openly in the airport. I see Paribu billboards in town. I see crypto money changes in the old town. And I think it's very interesting. I've heard very interesting stuff about how Turkey is have one of the highest crypto adoption in the world. And it's nice to be on the ground and see what's going on. Obviously, there are reasons why crypto adoption has have flourished very strongly in Turkey because of the various macroeconomic conditions. But by and large, it's interesting to see how mainstream adoption happens in a country.
Thank you. And during the conference, I know you're giving a talk yourself, but are there any talks, panels, or perhaps side events that you're looking forward to attending?
Yeah, I think there's several interesting speakers at the conference. I was just listening to a talk from Seong of Jupiter. And I think there's several others very top Solana projects that I am looking forward to listening, and I think it's an interesting conference.
And what are you going to be discussing yourself?
I'll be talking about in 2 panels. First one will be on a fireside chat on how we do crypto pricing on CoinGecko, and the second one will be on Solana data tomorrow.
Solana data. Okay, that is a perfect segue actually to my next set of questions. There are a few questions about the Solana ecosystem in general, but given that you deal a lot with data, when we think about adoption rates, how does Solana compare to other major blockchains?
Yeah, one of the interesting things that I've observed in Solana is that it takes a very different approach from the Ethereum or EVM-based modular. So there's a lot of debate on the modular blockchains like Ethereum and all the L2 surrounding it, and then the monolithic blockchain like Solana. So Solana goes fast and cheap, right? That's kind of like the model. And I think this fast and cheap thing, this feature of Solana has very good properties because it allows for mainstream retail users to make small trades. And what I've observed on Solana is that a lot of trades people are buying coins, meme coins, or any other coins for small amounts, for $5, $10 per trade, and then pay cents per trade, which is very affordable and reasonable on the Solana blockchain. Unfortunately, this is not possible on Ethereum. It takes $10 per transfer, $30 during peak traffic for a trade on Uniswap, for example. Obviously, transaction fees has gone down with the Dankun upgrade, but it's hard to argue with people that you should use Ethereum to buy $10 worth of a token. $10 may not sound like a lot of money to many people, but $10 is a pretty sizable amount of money to a random university student in Turkey, for example. That's probably, 2 weeks worth of his allowance or 2 weeks worth of his rent, and he's just buying something in the hopes that this is a good savings against a depreciating currency. So I think Solana is very good in that sense in reaching out to the retail market, especially those who are not from the developed country, who cannot afford to pay $10 or $5 per transaction And that's one of the big selling points of Solana. And I think this property is a very strong feature in making Solana go bigger and reaching out to more audience. Of course, one may argue that you could do the same on an L2, on like Arbitrum or Optimism or Base, but the fragmented nature of the modular chain, the Ethereum and modular blockchains, is that it makes it harder to kind of educate or bring people to the masses.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that performance that you mentioned, then firstly, how does Solana's performance generally compare to other blockchains? And what do you think of the performance of some of the layer 2s that you mentioned in relation to that?
Yeah, I think if you want to compare like Solana against L2, like Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, maybe they are kind of comparable. I guess if you want to look at number of transactions per second, I think Solana will still beat it, but transaction beats Ethereum L1 anytime, like in terms of TPS, in terms of fees. So the problem with the various L2s on Ethereum is that it becomes very confusing to a retail person. Like, where do you buy this coin? How do you onboard to Arbitrum? And then getting to Arbitrum, and then some coins are only on Optimism, and then you have to start bridging, and then you have to start learning. Whereas on Solana, the interesting thing is that, people just, you tell your friend, download like a Solana wallet, Phantom or Backpack or whatever it is, and then go to Jupiter and then buy your first coin, and then boom, they are in, and then they can kind of trade on their mobile phone. The mobile UX on Ethereum was kind of quite terrible. Mm-hmm. It's improved, but I would say that the mobile UX on Solana is still significantly better. And then I've kind of experienced it myself. Sometimes it's late at night or the weekend, and I just want to do some trade. It's kind of hard to do it on a mobile wallet on Ethereum or any of the L2s, but on Solana, on one of these mobile wallets, it's just a few clicks and boom, I got my token. So that's kind of like how I see things as well.
Okay, and I want to take us back for a second to the early days of Solana and the initial sort of explosion of interest that it experienced. How do you think about Sol's quite remarkable surge, I think, from being under $3 a pop to up to $250 a pop?
Yeah, I think Solana has seen its ups and downs. Obviously, it was first made really popular by SBF and the FTX crew. Mm-hmm. Went all the way to 250, as you said, all-time high. And then kind of after FTX imploded, we're on the way down to, I think, $10 or so. And then now it's back up to $150. It's an interesting journey. I think the transactions that you see on Solana, the use cases, the people, the developers building on Solana, kind of like, it speaks for itself. When there's more, and I think the Solana Foundation is doing a lot of interesting things. Like they do have these boot camps that they organize around the world to kind of attract developers. That's an interesting way to kind of get people to build on the Solana. And I think being cheap, being fast, has very good properties in onboarding a lot of people to Solana.
Absolutely. And again, thinking about the early days, the term ETH Killer was thrown around, I would say, rather loosely back then. Do you think Solana is an ETH Killer? Do you think it still holds that status? Does it need to? Yeah.
I think if you had to bet on somebody beating ETH, I think Solana is kind of like at the front runner, the number one spot. If you were to say that Solana's already beaten ETH, I think that's not the case yet in terms of market cap, volume, and TVL, and so on. But maybe in the next cycle, who knows what's going to happen. I think Ethereum's got a lot of catch up to do, and got to try to innovate and be competitive against these things, against Solana.
And do you think it's that sort of focus on the developer community that you were talking about a second ago that gives Solana this edge or potential edge?
Yeah, I guess depending on who you ask, like some people say Ethereum takes a more research-centric approach, whereas Solana takes a more engineering-focused approach towards developers, and that may result in different things, different outcome. But I think both are pretty dev-centric. It's just that I think Ethereum started earlier and they got a lot more mindshare, but a lot more work needs to be done to kind of make Ethereum competitive.
You mentioned FTX. We have to talk about it.
Of course, it's a big
It's a big part of Solana's journey. There were obviously massive price fluctuations following the FTX scandal. Some projects even abandoned Solana, or at least walked away from the ecosystem. In your view, personally, how is it that Solana managed to recover from such a catastrophe?
I think it's the core team stayed around and like the core people from the foundation kind of built and kind of rebuilt everything from scratch. Like obviously after FTX collapsed, a few projects left as well. I think DGOS is being one of the most prominent one, moving from Solana to Polygon and ETH, and then now kind of coming back to Solana again. But I think the core community stayed and hustled and kind of eventually kind of the blockchain performance by itself spoke and people gravitate. Developers go to where the users are, and the users are on Solana because it's cheap to trade on, for example, cheap and fast, easy to onboard users, and that's kind of where it is, I suppose.
That makes a lot of sense. And what makes Solana then stand out, aside from the reasons that you just mentioned? What makes them stand out among all of the layer ones? And are there any specific features or capabilities that you think are driving its current resurgence? Yeah,
cheap and fast, easy to onboard users. There's no bridging involved across different chains or L2s. I think very great mobile UX. That's something that I would love to see on the EVM ecosystem, but the mobile UX is fantastic in the Solana ecosystem, especially among the wallets, the Phantom wallets, the backpack wallet. You can kind of look, it's hard, but like we don't really, a lot of people from developing countries don't have a desktop. People don't trade with the desktop. They want to trade on, they only have, their smartphone is their only device, and people must be able to trade easily on their smartphone. I think Solana has cracked that UX problem. What do you anticipate in the markets for, let's say, the rest of this year? Yeah, it's an interesting, I think we are in the middle of a bull run. We've seen prices increase pretty much up only for the past 6+ months. And as with every crypto cycle, we'll see a very good year, followed 1 or 2 years, followed by 1 or 2 years of correction. I think we will see prices being higher than where they are today at the end of the year. I think we'll see. I think one metric that I personally like to monitor is the Coinbase app ranking and where they are. I think it's nowhere near the top yet. In the last cycle, I think Coinbase was #1 most downloaded app in the US. I think as we get towards, it's funny thing about crypto is when prices go up, there are more people getting more interested in crypto, right. And we'll start seeing this happening again. And I think like we'll start seeing this bull cycle, and the more news reports are writing about crypto, I think we'll start seeing this towards the end of the year, and we see more adoption, more usage, price go up, and so on towards the end of the year.
And another sort of interesting narrative that seems to divide people from time to time is Bitcoin L2s. I'm curious what your opinions on that are.
I think it's a fantastic development for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has been made fun of for a very long time. It was known as the pet rock, for example, because you can't do anything with your Bitcoin. But in the last 1 year, for example, especially after the Taproot upgrade, there's so many Bitcoin development and all the L2s are coming out. Obviously, some may argue based on semantics, these L2s are not necessarily L2s per se. But I think it's a good thing. If you think from a Bitcoin network security perspective, because the Bitcoin block rewards goes down over time, and then it's supposed to be replaced with Bitcoin transaction fees to kind of secure the network as an incentive to the miners to secure the network. I think all these L2s and all these like Ordinals and BRC20s have contributed in increasing network activity for Bitcoin, and the share of transaction fees versus block rewards have increased significantly, and in my opinion is very good for the overall network security of Bitcoin, but also makes things very interesting. Now, you can actually launch things on the Bitcoin smart contract and have it secured by the Bitcoin network, the strongest chain of all. I wouldn't say that it's the best user experience because I mean you can't change certain things like the 10-minute block time, for example. So it still takes time to confirm. But I think by and large, like it's a good development. Obviously, the problem with Bitcoin L2s is that there are maybe too many L2s right now. Maybe there's a dozen L2s going around. Which L2s will win? Will we see one or two L2s taking up the majority of share and the rest dying off, or kind of we see a fragmented approach? So then how do people kind of bridge and kind of, if you're on one L2, how do you kind of get onto the other L2 to kind of do certain things? That by itself creates a lot of UX problems for users.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting point that you're touching on there. In an interview that we did not too long ago, an L1 founder referred to some of the L2s as trash L2s. And I get the impression that you feel if there's a shakeout that quite a few of them will sort of cease to exist. Do you agree with that term, trash L2s, and how do you view L2s that won't survive?
Yeah, I think what that founder said on trash L2s probably is true. I think I don't think all the L2s will survive. My guess is one or two large L2s will survive, and then the rest will be zombie chains. We see the same thing as well. I mean, at CoinGecko, we also run a second project called Gecko Terminal. We track over 150 different L1, L2s, L3s, mostly EVM based. There's 11,000 DEXs that we track on these 150 chains, over 3 million tokens. Most of these chains are actually zombie chains. I mean, it's created, there's a chain, there's a DEX, but there's not much activity. There's no trading volume, there's no transactions, very little TVL. I think that's going to be the same. It's very easy to spin off a new chain, but how easy? Can you sustain user interest? Can you sustain developer interest? Can you get people to use it? That's not an easy thing. I think a lot of people are launching L2s, L1, L2s, L3s, whatever that you want to call it, because the market is rewarding all this infrastructure play with very high market cap for any tokens that are a chain for a smart contract platform, and the market's not rewarding consumer applications, but that's what we need more. We need more consumer apps instead of infrastructure play. But I guess I don't know why market's not seeing it. Maybe it's just not so good yet. But I hope to see more applications being launched instead of more infrastructure out there.
As somebody who has a pretty solid sort of bird's eye view of the entire industry, I would say, first of all, is it difficult for you to pick favorites? And if you do have a favorite ecosystem, which one is it?
We take a more impartial approach and kind of take a look at all the different ecosystems out there in the market and see everyone has their pros and cons. The hard part in telling them apart is, are these real? Or are they just marketing hype and there's no substance behind all those language that these chains use? At the end of the day, like looking at the numbers makes sense. Like, where are the users? Where are the trading volume? Where are the transactions? Sometimes the hard part is some of these things are fake. Like chains that have low trading fees, for example, can easily create bots to kind of push transactions and spam the chain to make it appear like it's bigger than what it is.
Do you have an example of chains that have done that in the past and failed, or chains that are doing that right now?
I think a lot of people argue that maybe Tron has been pushing all these kind of transactions, but who knows? I mean, I don't really have solid facts to back them up, but if you look at Tron, actually, like, I mean, depending on who you talk to, like, I think I've read somewhere that it has the highest number of retail usage when it comes to USDT. So nobody wants to talk about Tron because it's kind of like not the coolest thing to talk about, but a lot of retail users use Tron when it comes to sending USDT. And it is a pretty big use case and something that they have cracked, and I think it's one of the cheap and fast chain initially. And used by a lot of people in the developing markets.
Which blockchains do you think are in a position to potentially outcompete others in the very near future?
I think in the near future, like Ethereum is still going to be the largest smart contract platform. Solana's an interesting play. I think a lot of new users are being onboarded to Solana, so probably won't see Solana overtaking Ethereum this cycle because it's got a big gap. But if things continue the way it is, maybe the next cycle will be something interesting to see.
In terms of a big shakeout.
Yeah.
And what future developments can we expect from you guys at CoinGecko? Are there any new features, new major projects, new expansions that are in the pipeline?
Yeah, I think at CoinGecko, we are focusing a lot of efforts on our DEX tracker. So as I mentioned, we have geckoterminal.com. So it takes a non-curated approach. On CoinGecko, we take a curated approach and we list about 11,000 tokens on CoinGecko. On Gecko Terminal, we track every single trade, every single token on a blockchain. So we have 150 chains, 11,000 dexes, and nearly 3 million tokens. So a lot of efforts kind of moving towards the uncurated, non-curated option to kind of see what's going on in the market. I think what surprised me is how fast this space has developed, the decentralized nature. I mean, a few years ago, everyone's trading on a centralized exchange. Now everybody's trading on decentralized exchange. If you tell me a few years ago that everyone's going to be very comfortable using MetaMask, I say that was not possible. But after the NFT summer, everybody's very comfortable using MetaMask, and now everybody's kind of got a mobile wallet, trading on a DEX very easily. And it won't surprise me at the end of the year that we'll see 1,000 chains, L1, L2, L3s, EVM, non-EVM, and so on, and many more DEXs and many more tokens. And I think our aim at CoinGecko and Gecko Terminal is to kind of support this industry and kind of find ways to track all these things. And coming back to my original vision of like anything that can be tokenized will be tokenized. People will start tokenizing at time. We are starting to see people, the RWA, real world assets, people are tokenizing real world things like watches, like liquor, and anything that has value, and start trading them. And we start seeing SocialFi, we start seeing game assets being tokenized. So really, I think where we are, we're still very early stage, and we start seeing many different millions, billions of tokens being created. And our goal over here is to kind of, is to allow people to easily make sense of this crazy new crypto world. How do we, if there's like a billion token out there in the market, how do we make sense of all these tokens? And our goal is to kind of make it easy for users to understand and track their portfolio, their tokens.
Thank you. And again, as somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, somebody who has a bird's eye view and arguably quite an impartial view, what would you give in terms of advice to somebody who's either looking to be a founder in the crypto space or looking to enter it as a trader? What would you say to these people?
Yeah, I think find your niche. I think the crypto industry has grown so much, and there's so many different chains, so many different opportunities out there. You want to really find something that you can be the best in the world at, and build in that niche, and try to and then expand eventually. Obviously, easier said than done. I mean, there are some bets that you have to make, and some things that are beyond your control. For example, choosing where to build your app is probably a single biggest question. Do you build on Solana? Do you build on Ethereum? Do you build on Base? Do you build on Arbitrum, Optimism? Those are hard questions. Going deep into the community, talking to the core team, building these chains would be helpful, because by and large, like your growth will, if you build on a chain, will largely be dependent on the chain's growth. So a lot of apps or dApps on Solana has grown very rapidly because the Solana ecosystem has grown very rapidly in the last couple of years. But if you build on a dead chain or a zombie chain, for example, no matter if you have a lot of market share, you just won't go anywhere. So I think choosing a chain that has high potential for growth is a pretty important decision to make.
I think so too. On that note, do you have any final remarks you'd like to share about Istanbul, your time here so far at Solana Crossroads, CoinGecko, your aspirations for the future of the industry? Any closing remarks at all? Yeah,
I think it's been a great. I think it's interesting to see how people in Turkey has embraced cryptocurrencies. I think where we are in the crypto market, we're just very early stage. Anything that can be tokenized will be tokenized. We'll start seeing billions of tokens, and I'm very excited to see what the crypto industry will be able to offer in the next few years.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.